Welcome back to the Joe Rogan Experience. Tonight, relax and enjoy some of the most fascinating and mind-bending stories from the podcast, the kind that'll make you think, then help you drift off to sleep.
Shocking UFO and government secrets exposed by Joe Rogan in 2025. Trump. PsyOps and alien truth.
When you look at the current political landscape, particularly these trials, how disturbed are you by what seems to be this acceptance that people have for prosecuting political opponents? Because to me, it's, regardless of what you think about Donald Trump as a human being and the polarizing figure that he is, setting the precedent of trying your political opponents to somehow or another either put them in jail or make them seem like complete total criminals in a way that would, for the casual, for the person who's not reading deep into the headlines, for the casual Democrat that sees this Trump real estate thing that just happened where he got fined $365 million. The casuals, I've seen people argue, that, fraud is fraud and this is that and he's a fucking fraud. And then I saw Kevin O'Leary explain it from Shark Tank. He was saying this is what every real estate developer does. They say, my building's worth $400 million. And then someone comes along from the bank and they say, no, it's worth $300 million. We'll give you a loan on $300 million or whatever it is, whatever the number.
It's negotiation.
But also, real estate pricing in general is a strange thing to say that's fraud because people overvalue their property all the time. I mean, it's a standard thing that people do. When someone has a house and it's worth $700,000, they decide to list it as $900,000, and the real estate person says, "Well, it's really pushing it." The guy's like, "That's what I want. I think it's worth $900,000." Like, people have always done weird shit like that. For sure. And then when you have this leftist judge that says that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, like, then you just showed all your silly hands. You showed your hand, because that's a crazy thing to say in a place that has the most expensive real estate on earth.
Yeah, and and the Mar-a-Lago property is not worth $18 million. I mean, that's absurd.
Isn't it like 18 acres?
Yeah, it's huge. It covers both sides of the little key or whatever you call it, the little island. But the bigger question is the question that was first raised by the presidency of Richard Nixon, that is now coming to fruition with the presidency and the kind of ex-presidency of Donald Trump. We have a democratic system that favors Trump in the sense that he won in 2016. He's winning the primary right now for Republicans in 2024. But you have a bureaucracy that is dead set against him. And the rhetoric amounts to a very odd claim. They essentially say, we want to keep him off the ballot. We want to put him in prison. We want to bankrupt him so he can't become the president, even if the people support him. We want to deprive the people of making the decision. So you want to take it out of the realm of politics and into the realm of administrative justice or the criminal justice system, right, and adjudicate it in that way on bogus pretexts. I mean, the cases are bogus. And so the question that we're raising is, who actually rules in this country? Is it the American people who get to decide by their vote who represents them in the government? Or is it the permanent bureaucracy that has accumulated so much power? What they can say even to Donald Trump has been one of the most famous people in the world for decades. He's enormously wealthy. He's already been the president of the United States. He's a powerful person. And the message is, we can take out anyone that is a threat to the interests of the system that we've built up. And so, as someone who, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, I did vote for him for 2020. I'll absolutely vote for him now in 2024. It is a contest of how we think of our democratic system. And I'm of the mind that the people should decide, not the bureaucracy. And this is a contest where Democrats are saying, essentially, we have to destroy democracy in order to save democracy. Democracy has very different meanings in the two usages in that sentence. We have to destroy democracy as we've traditionally known it, electing a president through a vote of the people, in order to save democracy, which is ruled by expert opinion, ruled by the bureaucracy, and essentially left-wing hegemony, left-wing domination over institutions. And as someone who tries to maximize whatever I can do to push forward on these issues politically. It's not lost on me that if they can wipe out someone like Donald Trump, we're all table stakes relatively.
Yeah.
And they're going to have no hesitation, because once they cross the Rubicon, metaphorically speaking, that's when dissent becomes a crime. And we've already seen that. I reported on the kind of gender ideology in schools, and work with some of the parent groups that were trying to mobilize, and they all got put on an FBI list. We know this for sure, a FBI counterterrorism list.
Jeez.
That was specifically for parent school board protesters. So if you participate in the democratic process, we'll turn you into a criminal. I hate that with every fiber of my being, and whatever threats come my way, whatever lawsuits, whatever investigations come my way, it's worth it. Take me to prison. Fine, let's do this, because we have to actually confront these questions head on. We need to have people that have enough courage courage without risk is not courage.
What you're saying is not hyperbole.
No, these are facts.
Yeah.
These are documented facts.
And again, because it's a person like Donald Trump, you get people thinking, like, if you could stop Hitler by any means necessary, wouldn't you stop Hitler? And so they equate Donald Trump with Hitler and go, here you go, this is our modern Hitler. Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it, because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said this
on television. Find that, young Jamie, because it's
amazing.
so. That's not what it means at all.
Yeah, no.
But the fact that she says that so confidently, like if you're willing to let Donald Trump use presidential immunity, that means Joe Biden could just go crazy and arrest all the Republicans, because that's what that means. No, that's not what that means, even a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
you just
not at
added a
all.
whole bunch of stuff to what that means. Are you, Jeremy, I'm sure you're aware of this, the footage from the Mexican Air Force?
Yeah, very aware of that.
What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's IR footage, which is really interesting. They actually got the cameras for drug runners, right? So you can see in the infrared, so it's beyond the observable, eye. I myself have not detailed looked at the footage. However, FLIR experts, some people that work with NSA have looked at it for me, and these are not lights in the distance. These are craft, very similar to what Commander Fravor talks about, without plumes, without heat signatures, non-traditional field propulsion systems. We don't have that.
And I thought they tried to, is this it right here? Is this the Mexican Air Force footage?
Yeah. So they tried to say these were lights on like an oil rig out in the water. That's been debunked.
Yeah, they tried to say it was a fire in an oil rig, right?
No.
The 2004
Talk to the pilots.
Comcast Video of the Year was the Mexican Air Force tracking like 6. So literally right after our incident, we come back, and I think we were getting ready to go to Fallon, and I had Comcast, and the home page comes up, and there's this video, and I go, holy cow, that looks like what we chased. And it was like 6 of these things, and they were tracking them in the same area too, right off the coast of Ensenada.
And it's not as rare. There's now admitted an increased frequency. A Pentagon spokeswoman finally went off script. I was tracking the scripts for the last 2 years of what Pentagon spokespeople say about Commander Fravor's experience. Someone went off script last week in the New York Times, and she admitted there's an increased frequency of near misses because of these AAVs, anomalous aerospace vehicles. So it's pretty astounding. We're getting all these kind of revelatory moments in these little seeds that these are not ours. We don't have this. Even Elon doesn't have this. I mean, this is a propulsion system unlike anything we have. It's amazing. It's gravity propelled.
Now, that gimbal footage,
Yeah.
when it said that there's a fleet of them, how far away are those guys where you don't see the individual objects, you only see a singular spot?
Well, the pod is, when you get pretty narrow, it'd be like, if I put 3 people around you, I can look at you and not see the other people. So that's what the pod is doing. But the radar is seeing everything because it has an AESA radar in it, which is an active electronically scanned array. So instead of like the radars we had, which did the mechanical, doing this like old school, this thing is just a panel that sits in the front of the airplane, and through beam sharing or beam shaping, it can move and it can look all over. So we used to have what was called track while scan, so we would be able to track a target while we're still scanning. This thing has scan while it scans while it tracks. So it literally, if it sees you, if the radar sees you, it has basically a weapons quality solution. And it can do that on multiple targets. It's the same way the spy radar, the Aegis system works on the cruisers. It can track multiple targets and have weapons quality on all these different targets while it's still scanning a volume.
So in that image, you're seeing one individual object, but there's other objects?
Yes. The radar is seeing the object that the pod is looking at where they're talking. And when you hear the video, you hear the pilot say, "Dude, look at the SA page. There's a whole fleet of them." So what they're seeing is the pod is looking at the main. That's the bigger object at the gimbal, the thing that's rotating on the screen. And there's 5 smaller things in front. So this thing's just sitting there. And then he said they turn around on the radar and start going the other way while the pod's looking at this guy just kind of rotating.
So like a mothership and smaller aircraft.
Could be.
Something along those lines. Is there video of those smaller aircrafts or just the video of the one large one?
The only thing they have is the targeting pod. I would highly doubt, even if they had the video, that they're going to release the radar video because of classification levels.
Are you able to tell the story you told me about what was underwater with your other buddy? Because is that okay?
Yeah. So it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork when they figure out you've had this, because now they don't feel alone. So I was working. I still do it, but I was doing oil and gas at the time on a contract, and one of the guys, the story came out, and he was a Navy helicopter pilot. And he comes in, he goes, "Dude, hey, can I talk to you, man?" I go, "What about?" He goes, "Dude, I got to talk to you." And I said, "What do you want to talk to me about?" He says, "Dude, you know your UFO?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I had a similar experience." I said, "What's that?" He said, he was flying CH-53s, which is a big heavy lift that the Marine Corps uses, and the Navy uses it for certain things. And when they go for the East Coast, they do a lot of shooting off of, at the time, it was off of Puerto Rico. We had Roosevelt Roads that they ended up closing. But he was flying out of there. And, you got super clear Caribbean water. And they have these things that are called BQMs. They fly around, and then when they're all done, because they'll fly towards the ships, and the ship they can track with the radar. And then they also do, when the ships or submarines shoot torpedoes, they're called telemetry rounds. So they gather all the data on what the torpedo is doing underwater, and then they blow ballast, and this thing will come to the surface and float, and then they go pick them up, and then they can extract all the data out of them. So they do it for both. So he said the first time they're out and they're going to pick up this BQM. And those things, when they're flying, they're done, a parachute comes out, and they hook it up. The helo drops the swimmer in the water. He goes and hooks this whole thing up, and then they hoist the whole thing up and fly back, and then they extract the data. So he says he's sitting in the front. In helicopters, there's, CH-53, you can actually see down by your feet, just like typical, like you got a Hawaiian ride, because you can see when you're touching down. So you got really good visibility out of those things, and you can stick your head out the window, too, because you're just kind of hanging out. He says he's going on there, and they're getting this thing hooked up, and as he's looking down, because they're, 50 feet above the water, he sees kind of this dark mass coming up from the depths. And they start to hoist the diver up, and they've got the BQM, and as they hoist it up, he says, and he's looking at this thing going, "What the hell is that?" And then it just goes back down underwater. It just once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. So he thinks, well, that was pretty weird. So he goes out, he says, not too long later, a few months later, he's out and he's picking up a torpedo. So he says they hooked the diver up on the winch, and they're lowering him in, and as he's looking down, he sees this big, massive, he goes, it's not a submarine. He's seen submarines before. Once you see a submarine, you can't confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, he says, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell him to pull the diver up, and the diver's like a few feet from the water. So they reverse the winch, and the diver's thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's getting pulled up, and all of a sudden, he said the torpedo just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths, and they never recovered the torpedo.
Jesus.
And this happened in the late 90s. Mid to late 90s, I think it is. I could probably get in touch with him and ask him. And he told me this story, and I'm like,
how do you report that?
You come in and go, well, where'd the torpedo go? It just got sucked down. It just went down, and then you get the people that attribute it as, something happened when it blew ballast and it just took on water and sank. And he's like, it didn't sink. He goes, it literally looked like it got sucked down. The only reason they talked to him when they did the New York Times stuff, they talked to him, but because the incident was from the 90s, they wanted something, newer. So they did not include it, but I know they talked to him about it.
Now, what was the other footage that we were looking at? There was the first footage that Jamie pulled up that wasn't the gimbal footage. That was
the Go
something else?
Fast.
The Go Fast. What is that?
That's it actually looks more like a Tic Tac, but they saw it going across the water, and they're just grabbing a lock. So they're seeing this with their eyes, and he gets the FLIR to lock on it, and that's when you hear the kid go, "Oh, I got it," because he gets the auto track, and it's just something screaming across the surface of the water. So,
and this is in the same area?
This is East Coast, yeah. This is the same time frame as the gimbal video.
So the idea that these are birds, or the idea that this is a radar glitch, or somebody said pilot error, like on a clear blue day, Commander Fravor has nerves. I mean, that kind of thing that people have said on your show to you, that these are explanations that make sense.
Who said that?
I don't want to say their names.
Mick West?
Yeah, sure.
Mick believes everything. Like every single thing that's ever happened has a rational explanation for it.
so the probability that all the radars went off at the wrong time. Commander Fravor had nerves. That all the other pilots up there with him, that this thing shot off like a gun instantly. Like that was somehow perfectly coordinated. That's a conspiracy. That's a fabrication. Probably Occam's razor is the events happened exactly like we're being told.
Yeah, for us it was. And I'll go back to the beginning of the story of, the other pilot who was brand new. She had been in the squadron for 4 months, 5 months. So she's pretty junior. She was still working on her initial qual on the airplane. And, so she gets we get the real world vector, and it's like, okay, real world vector, cool. I'm going to get to do something real, exciting. Then you see the water, and you think, oh, something's sinking, because it's kind of that shape of an airplane, that cross type. So now it's, oh crap, now it's search and rescue. We got to go down and see, because there's people, and we are sympathetic. And to the Tic Tac, and as soon as the Tic Tac, it's like, holy shit, what is that? And when you get, some people get very emotional when you talk about it. Because for me, it was like, for her, when you talk to her, she has a disdain for some of the leadership that didn't tell us that these things were out there. They're here now, we're getting vectored because we were the first time the manned airplanes had been airborne when one of these things showed up. That no one even gave us a brief that, hey, we're seeing these objects out here for the last 2 weeks. They're just kind of, you might want to know they're out there. And they never told us. No one knew these things existed besides the radar operators. And the radar operators didn't know what they were. They just knew they were seeing blips. So and there's a lot of stuff that, that it flew around and it came around me, and it didn't do any of that stuff. It's... The story that I gave you is just relatively benign, but it was, it's an interesting experience.
So these incidents that they reported were taking place before you saw that Tic Tac encounter.
Yeah,
they were taking place over a period of how many weeks?
2 weeks. We went out at the beginning of the month for this 2 week at sea period. We pulled in for Thanksgiving, but other than that, we were out till I think December 21st is when we pulled the ship back in. Besides pulling in for the 3 days at Thanksgiving. So, yeah, for the 2 weeks prior, so this was on the 14th, and we went out at the beginning of the month. So about 2 weeks, they had been watching these things come down, go up, come down, go up. But it was always when we were not flying, which is really probably like the midnight time frame until early in the morning the next, till noon the next day. And then we just happened to go. And if you think about it, I laugh at, if there was some little green man flying around in that Tic Tac, he probably got back to the mothership and got yelled at for being seen. But you're like, oh my God, you let him see you. So
things are getting very wild.
Yeah, there is a lot of misinformation. Some people said, I invented 3i Atlas, this object, in order to distract attention from the Epstein files.
Is that what people are saying?
Yeah, and I said, look, this object is the size of Manhattan Island. It's at 4.5 times the Earth-Sun separation. If I was able to put it out there, I would be more powerful than the Pope. And because we're talking about a giant object that you can see from any place on Earth. You can buy online a telescope that will allow you, 0.5 meter in size, that will allow you to see it. It's out there. It cannot be faked.
Well, those people are fools. You can't listen to those people.
I don't listen to those. I don't listen to many people,
Initially, a lot of people were dismissing your concerns, and they were saying that this object is nothing but a comet, and it's very normal. But then as it got closer and as we got more data, it seems like you're correct.
Well,
This is a very unusual object.
there is something really important to recognize here, that usually when you deal with scientific matters, they have very little impact on the future of humanity. Very little. If the neutrino has a little bit of a mass, doesn't really matter. When we discovered the Higgs boson, the biggest impact was to confirm some idea we had back in the 60s. And, obviously that affected, those people who got the Nobel Prize. But most of us continued as if nothing happened. However, here, if we ever encounter alien technology, everything will change. It will affect the financial markets. It will affect politics in a major way. So my point is simple. This is different than other scientific matters. And the intelligence agencies know very well that events with very small probability have to be considered seriously because they could have major implications. Just think about October 7th. The Israeli intelligence agencies had a theory that the Hamas will do nothing. And they got data that indicated something is going on out there, but they dismissed it because of their theory. Now, as a result of their mistake, which was clearly a blunder, a lot of people died on both sides. That this could have been avoided if they were to consider a black swan event, an event that you put a small probability for it happening, but you look at anomalies in the data and say, look, the implications are so huge, we have to consider it. And, this idea was already considered by the philosopher-mathematician Blaise Pascal. He talked about God. And he said, look, of course, you might think that God doesn't exist. The probability for that is small, but the implications, if God exists, the implications are so huge that we have to discuss it. That was the argument, Pascal's wager. And the intelligence agencies know that. Believe me, the Israeli intelligence agencies will not make that mistake again. Now, here comes an object from outside the solar system, and it shows anomalies. The scientists would say we should be as careful as possible at talking about anything other than a rock. Now, they say that when they know that humanity launched a lot of space junk, a lot of technological objects to space. And we also know that there are 100 billion stars like the sun in the Milky Way galaxy alone. Most of them formed billions of years before the sun. And there are billions of Earth-Sun analogs. Now, we all believe that we came out of a soup of chemicals. That's the scientific narrative of how human intelligence came on this earth. And so it's quite likely that, we are not the first one. Sorry to break the news, Elon Musk was probably not the most accomplished space entrepreneur since the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. And therefore, we should consider the possibility that things like us existed long before us. And you can ask the question, how long does it take our own technology, the Voyager spacecraft that we launched out of the solar system, how long does it take it to move to the opposite side of the Milky Way galaxy? Thousands of light years away, it takes less than 1 billion years. And that means that all these civilizations that had their history initiated billions of years before ours could have done it. And all we need to do as responsible scientists is to check if among all the rocks that come from outside of our backyard are really rocks, or maybe one of these objects might be a tennis ball that was thrown by a neighbor. And the reason I say that is, we live at our home, on Earth, next to the sun. We look around us in the cosmic street, and we see a lot of houses just like ours. There are billions of them, probably. Now, my colleagues, those scientists who think traditionally, they say, well, microbes came to Earth very early, therefore they must be everywhere. So let's define our highest priority, searching for microbes on other houses in our cosmic street. And I say, Good. You can do that from the vantage point of your home. You can look through the window and search for microbes in your neighbor's yards. But you would need to put $10 billion to develop a big enough instrument that would be able to detect the chemical fingerprints of microbes, on exoplanets. And think about the possibility that there is a resident in one of those houses. That resident might show up in your front door at some point, or you might see an object that arrives to your backyard or your mailbox from that resident.
A black swan event.
A black swan event. Or you might see some construction project from a distance. That might be easier to detect than microbes. So we should hedge our bets. We should invest billions of dollars on both fronts. At the moment, the scientific community is willing to allocate more than $10 billion to searching for microbes, but no recommendation is made to allocate any federal funding to the search for intelligence. And I say that is an oversight.
Let's go back to, one more time. Oumuamua. Okay, yeah. I don't want to screw it up. How large was that?
That was the size of a football field.
Okay, so
of all the 100 meters.
Small in comparison to 3I Atlas.
Oh, yeah. That's my point, that 3I Atlas is 1 million times more massive, at least 1 million times more massive than Oumuamua. Right. And I immediately, as it was discovered, it was July 1st, and my wife asked me to go on vacation to Aruba 2 days later. And as I was going on the plane and as I arrived there, I realized, wait, that doesn't make sense, because we should have seen millions of Oumuamuas before we saw this one. It's so big. And I also realized there is not enough rocky material per unit volume in interstellar space to deliver such a giant rock into the inner solar system within a period of a decade. You would expect it at the very optimistic scenario where you package all the material into objects that are 5 kilometers in diameter. You would imagine once per 10,000 years. So I wrote immediately a scientific paper. My wife was not happy that, on our vacation, I was sitting on my computer, but I just couldn't resist it.
Right.
And by the way, this paper I submitted for publication. That was July 3rd or something. And then the editor said, oh, the paper is fine, but you have a concluding sentence at the end where you say, well, unless the object is smaller than estimated, maybe it was targeting the inner source. That was my solution to say, one way out of this dilemma of why is it so big is if it was targeting the inner solar system by design. And indeed, the trajectory is aligned with the plane of the planets around the sun to within 5 degrees. The chance for that at random is 1 in 500, okay? And it's moving in a retrograde trajectory opposite to the motion of the planets, which is ideal for it to release mini probes that will get into the planets. It gets close to Mars, it gets close to Jupiter, it goes on the opposite side of the sun relative to Earth when it's closest to the sun. And that's the time when a spacecraft could do a maneuver to take advantage of the sun's gravitational assist. All of these are interesting indications that may imply that some intelligence designed the trajectory. So I had one sentence at the end of the paper saying, maybe the trajectory was designed. And the editor said, no. The paper will not get published unless you remove that sentence.
Wow.
So now when you listen to comet experts that say, well, this claim or that claim was never published in a peer-reviewed journal, guess what? They are the editors or the reviewers who are blocking the discussion on possibilities. And I think it's inappropriate, especially in the case of alien technology, because it could be a black swan event. It could be something that affects the future of humanity. And if we behave, very conservatively, we might not last very long.
Well, it's also arrogant.
It's arrogant.
Yeah. This object shows that there's no iron.
Oh, no. So then the composition of the plume of gas around
this is before you knew about the composition.
That's right.
That you wrote this paper.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
so as time is going on, you are being shown to be correct.
Well, we found more anomalies.
More anomalies. So this is not a normal thing.
Not a normal thing. So for one thing, there was a glow that looks like an extended feature. And everyone said, oh, that's a tail. That's the signature of a comet.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute. It's pointing towards the sun. It's not pointing away from the sun. Usually cometary tails are made of dust and gas, which is pushed back away from the sun by the radiation and the solar wind, and so this one was pointed towards the sun, not away from the sun. And the question is, why? And actually, I calculated that, it appeared very clearly in the sharpest image we had from the Hubble Space Telescope, which showed an elongation by a factor of 2 towards the sun. But we were looking at it like a cigar. We were looking almost along the cigar long axis, within 10 degrees of the object sun axis. So we were looking almost edge on. Mm-hmm. And I calculated if you were to correct for that, this would be a feature that is 10 times longer than it is wide. And that means it's like a jet. So the object had a jet in front of it towards the sun. The question is why? And, the comet experts ignored it and just said, well, comets are strange. Who knows? But my point is, this is a blind date of interstellar proportions. And my advice on blind dates is not to speak or say what you think this is, but to observe the other side. The best way to respond to a blind date is to observe the other side. Don't speak, just observe the other side, because it may be different than what you think. And maybe, on one of the dates, you will have a serial killer on the other side.
Oh, boy. Now, explain, if you could, how we know the composition of this thing.
So we can figure out composition of a plume of gas by taking a spectrum of it, which means you basically have some kind of a prism that breaks, that light with different wavelengths is bent at different angles. And so you spread the light into the different colors. And if you do that, you can find the fingerprints, the spectral fingerprints of specific atoms or molecules, because each atom or molecule has transitions. I taught it just 2 days ago in a class that I teach that is obligatory at the Harvard Astronomy Department, where I was chair for a decade, like between 2011 2020. So this is the mandatory class, and I just taught how, spectral lines emitted by atoms and molecules just 2 days ago. So this is a very well-known thing, and we know the wavelengths of those, and we use them to identify the composition. We know which atoms produced these spectral lines, the fingerprints. It's just like fingerprints, okay? And so what was found, and that's by multiple teams, there are 3 papers on that, we found nickel, a lot of nickel, but very little iron. At first, no iron whatsoever. Now, usually in all the comets in the past, from the solar system and also from interstellar space, there is one comet, Borisov, that was found. It's the second interstellar object, which looked just like a familiar comet. I had nothing to say about that one. It looked like a comet, behaved like a comet. It was a comet, but it had similar abundances of nickel and iron. The only place where we found before much more nickel than iron is in alloys that we produce industrially. For example, for aerospace applications. Right. Nickel alloys have a lot of nickel, no iron. So maybe the skin of this object is industrially produced. That was my suggestion. But what the authors of these papers said is maybe nature is capable of going through the same chemical pathway of producing nickel without iron as we do in our industries. So they made the conjecture that this carbonyl pathway, which is well known in the industry world, carbonyl is the pathway, the name of the pathway. They said, well, maybe this carbonyl pathway happens in nature. We have never seen it before, but that is their explanation.
Yeah, no, it would be nice to find that. That's for sure. But I believe, Bob, I do, and I believe Barney and Betty, and I believe
wanna
Travis.
believe them. I want to believe all of them. That's
I
my
believe
problem.
I believe the Allagash guys. Why would they do this?
Because people are full of shit.
Well-
They love to lie. They love attention. They love crazy stories. People love telling you they're psychic. People love believing in astrology. People believe in Bigfoot. I think that there's a lot of people out there that want fantastic things to be real, including me. It's exciting. It's way more exciting than not being real.
It is entertaining. That's why I love the whole subject.
That's
But
my problem with it.
the thing is that these people were severely damaged. Like Barney Hill was damaged. The Allagash boys were damaged. Travis
so?
Walton were psychologically damaged by these experiences. You know?
Allegedly.
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, they might have been damaged already. This might have been...
I accept that.
Yeah, this might have been something
But you read
where-
Contact, and
Yes,
you've
I
seen
did.
Betty interviewed. Doesn't she come off as
She does.
someone who is extremely credible?
She
and-
does.
Yeah.
She does. So does Barney. Betty and Barney Hill. They're an interesting couple because they were an interracial couple. What year was this that this happened?
57.
So they were dealing with all sorts of pressure. This was during the civil rights movement, and they were, they were pretty. It was not what you would expect for people that were calling out and trying to get attention, and the way.
Yep.
The way they described this, it resonated with people.
Well, he was having nightmares and rashes, and they had to come to some medical conclusion about it. And they
Also
consulted a
extremely
friend.
consistent. The
Yeah.
story was extremely consistent.
It was, and they consulted a friend at the Air Force, who they knew, and they came to Ben Simon and that. No, it's a fascinating story. There's this, it's just in a way, as again, it's very, very, very entertaining. And
How did you get involved in this?
well, my mother worked for the Ministry of Munitions and Supply in World War II for the minister, and she was suborned to work with the aircraft production for the Hurricane. She was in charge of working with getting the Hurricane fuselages built in Canada for the Hurricane fighter plane. So she was in the world of aviation. And in 1947, she was walking down Spark Street in Ottawa, and she looked up in the sky, and she was sort of said, something told me to look up. And she said she saw what looked like a Christmas tree ornament just winking above the street about 400 or 500 feet, winking on and off, red, green, white, red, green, white. And she thought, that's odd, And then she looked at it, and she said, it just zipped off in the sky and disappeared. And around the house after that point, we always had articles. There's a cover of Life magazine with Marilyn Monroe. It talked about flying saucers. There's a cover of Look magazine with Elizabeth Taylor. It catalogs the Barney and Betty Hill incident. So whenever one of those articles come up, she always had that at home for me to read. So I was interested in it from then. And I've had 4 sightings myself, quite vivid. The first one was in Martha's Vineyard. It was 4 a.m. I got up to take a leak on the balcony there, and I looked up in the sky, and about 100,000 feet up, I saw 2 glowing discs flying in echelon formation.
You saw this?
I saw this.
How old were you?
I was in my 30s, yeah. And so I look up, and I see these things, and they're moving, man. They're going from horizon to horizon, 20,000 miles an hour. And I've been in an F-5. I've had it in my hands. I've been in a B-25. I know helicopters. I know aviation. I know meteoric bolides. I know what's not a meteor and what is. I know what's a helicopter and what is. I know what's the moon and Venus. 2 glowing round objects, 100,000 feet, maybe 20,000 miles an hour they're doing, because they went across the sky like just in a zigzag formation. So if I screamed to my wife, my friends, they got out, the 3 of us saw it, and I said, and they all knew it was something unusual. That was my first sighting. Okay, now who knows? Okay, meteoric bolide. There are many people that can dispute that wasn't real. But I know what I saw. I know what my friends saw. I know what my wife saw. Those things were moving. They were glowing fast. They were flying in formation. And they were doing enough speed to get from basically the right side of my eyes to the left side of my eyes really fast. The second one was... I was in so that's 4. I count those 2 as 2, and then the second one that I saw. So the 1, 2, the third one I saw. I was in Montreal, Canada, and I was on the 23rd floor of the Queen Elizabeth Hotel, and this would have been when we were doing Patron in Canada, the Patron tequila promotion, and would have been in the early 2000s. And I looked up and beyond the window there, and I saw this. Well, it just looked like an air mattress turned over on its with the bubbles on the bottom. It was huge. It was 150 feet long, 50 feet wide, gray. It was a gray, rainy day in Montreal, broad daylight, and here was this thing at the 23rd story of the hotel. And I'm looking at it, and it moves slowly down St. Catherine Street, and I'm thinking, where are the wires? Where are the wires? Where? It's got to be a balloon. It's got to be. There's no Thanksgiving Day parade here. What is that? And my friends are with me. What is that? And it come along, and it just parked outside the window. We looked at it, big gray thing with these bulbs underneath, and then it slowly turned, and we saw the full length of it. And then it went around the corner. We ran out in the hall, and we just watched it drift kind of sideways off over the St. Lawrence River and disappear. Wow. Well,
Did people take pictures of this?
No, we didn't get any pictures, and I don't know who else saw it.
What year was this?
In the 2000, let's see, 5 or 6, something like that. And then
Did other people report it?
No, I don't know. I should have checked and seen in Montreal with the local MUFON. I think they have a representative up there. But it was vivid. We all saw it. And then the fourth one that I saw, I was on my motorcycle leaving town to go at Kingston, Ontario, where I live there, and I was driving out of the farm gate, and I saw there's a power line that runs on the opposite farm there across the road, and I saw this winking red light just moving slowly along the top of the power pylons, and I thought, well, helicopters, they do that kind of work where they string power lines, but they don't really do it at night. I thought that's got to be a chopper, a hydro chopper, like a hydro company chopper watching the power lines, checking for faults, or I don't know. And it goes along like this, and I'm watching it, and I stop the bike, and I'm watching, and then it stops and makes a right angle turn and comes right at me. And so I turn on, I have a police motorcycle, so I turn on my wigwags, like that.
You have a police motorcycle?
Of course.
Why do you have a police motorcycle?
I have police equipment. Well,
are you a cop? Damn, Aykroyd. Imagine getting pulled over by a blues brother.
Wouldn't that be good? I've actually had the experience of actually pulling some people over. Anyway.
You pulled people over?
Sure.
Why'd you pull them over? You're a sheriff?
Well, I was a reserve.
Deputy sheriff. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
you and
reserve.
Ted Nugent.
A reserve, I must say. But I served under the first African-American sheriff in Hinds County, Mississippi, in its history. Anyway, back to my sighting. The thing comes along. I turn on the wigwags on the bike, and it stops above me, and it turns on a light. And I'm going, where's the rotor wop? Where's the wash? Come on, the helicopter at 3,000 feet, you can hear it. This thing's like 400 feet above me. I'm looking at the thing. I'm thinking, where's the wash? Where's the? It looks like a helicopter. It's got to be a helicopter. Do I see a canopy? Do I see rings, rotors? Nothing. Just a mass of kind of metallic and lights, and it just shines this light on me, and I turned the lights on the bike on, and then turned them off, and then it winked the light off, and it just drifted out over the field. And just drifted off like that. So
you've had 3 different.
And then
instances.
one night I was
4?
in bed. I was in bed with my wife. It was in the 1987 or so, and I woke bolt upright at 3 a.m. I said, I got to go outside. They're calling me. They want me to see. And she says, oh, go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep. Next day, all over the radio of upstate New York, they talked about a big pink spiral in the sky that had appeared to northeastern Ontario and upstate New York. And they were saying, oh, it was a Chinese rocket. What, a bottle rocket? Or the Chinese sent a rocket? This was the explanation that the media and the government was giving at the time. So those are my experices right there. And
so that's how you got hooked.
And then an interesting thing happened where I was doing a show called Out There, Beyond Belief, and we were doing it over there for Bonnie Hammer over there at the Sci-Fi Channel. And it was an interview show where I talked to Doug Meldrum, the Sasquatch expert, and all kinds of...
I've talked to Doug.
Yeah, I believe him. He's passionate about it. I don't see why he's also a scientist. I talked to all those people, but the day that I had Steve...
You think Sasquatch is real?
Yes, I do. I believe that there's got to be. That's just. Do you know Gabrielle Reese, the Olympian?
Sure, I've had her on the podcast.
Have you? She talked about her Sasquatch experience?
No. Now I need to talk to her
you really
again.
do. Yeah.
She's so gigantic and beautiful. I would imagine that Sasquatch wanted to breed with her.
Well, that's why.
Right?
Apparently, it shook a camper that was she was up in upstate. Up in
big
Washington
giant
State.
Woman, super athlete.
She was attacked. Her camper was attacked by one. She tells that story. Yeah. But where was I about the? Where do we get back to the Gabrielle Reese Sasquatch? But I had interviewed all kinds of people on this show.
You were talking about
my show. It was supposed to be
Sasquatch.
It was supposed to be but it was supposed to be a show on Sci-Fi Channel, an interview show where I'd interviewed everybody, all the people in the field of cryptozoology and that, and sci-fi and science fiction and theory and UFOs. And I had Stephen Greer and Stephen Bassett on that same day.
I've had Stephen Greer on the show too.
Okay, so I interview Stephen Bassett, and I'm about to interview Greer, and I get a call in about like noon, at our noon break, and they call and they say, your show's canceled. We want you out of the studio by the end of the day, and we're not going to air anything that you've done. Stephen Bassett, Stephen Greer, the UFO show, it gets canceled that day. Now, maybe Ms. Hammer made a decision, talk shows aren't really our thing, or Aykroyd's not really what we want on our network, or I don't know. Was she called by someone, or what? Why that day when I was going to do this vivid, UFO show that was going to go out on the air eventually? Why then did it get canceled?
Well, how are the ratings? How are the ratings?
Well, no, we never got to air. I did 26 of them, and we never got to air.
It never got to air.
No.
So you just filmed them, and it never got. Did you guys do any wacky ones where they got the film and like, what are these crazy fuckers doing? Was there any of that? Like if you were non-believer, non-UFO enthusiast.
It was a pure interview show. I didn't show any footage. I just interviewed.
Just talk to people.
Yeah. So the day of my UFO show that I was going to do my big Stephen Greer and Stephen Bassett show, we got canceled. So, there's.
But do you think that they would listen? Sci-fi is all about those shows. I mean, I watched an episode of Sci-Fi where there's a bunch of people that claim to be trapped in a cabin in Maine because werewolves were outside. It's just like they're into nonsense.
They don't do talk shows.
I did a show on Sci-Fi. I had a show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. Where
how long did it last?
Not very long, but part of that was my idea.
And then you worked for Bonnie.
Keep doing it.
You worked for Bonnie Hammer.
No,
right?
it was different people back then.
Because she's one of the smartest executives in the industry, and I don't doubt that she'll be running NBC someday or all of Universal. But I would always like to know what happened. Did someone call you, Bonnie, and say, don't bring this up now? I don't know.
I don't think anyone's going to call people about UFOs. Do you wonder at all that this is a massive psyop and this is all just to cover up some very advanced American weapons technology?
I think it's a very good question, and here's why I don't believe that. Because I have done 30 years of field research, right? So I've gone to China, I've been to Russia, I've been to Australia and Africa and South America, Canada, Alaska, all across Europe, the United States, and I've investigated close encounters of the third kind. And I would ask your audience, don't take it from me, but the United States Air Force investigated and categorized close encounters of the first, second, and third kind, right? During their official capacity, Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book.
Great fucking movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, folks, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, probably the best alien invasion movie of all time.
Dr. Hynek has a cameo appearance in that film. Did you know that?
I had heard that.
Yeah, so
I don't remember who he was, though, but wasn't the French guy, didn't he?
Yeah, Jacques Vallée.
He's supposed to be Jacques Vallée.
But Jacques Vallée has a cameo. Well, there's a guy acting his part, but actually Dr. Jalen Hynek, who's a scientific advisor to Project Blue Book all those years for the Air Force, actually has a cameo appearance, smoking a cigar during the encounter. And
that's him. Right. That's
Dr.
right.
Hynek.
That's right.
Yep.
Smoking a pipe.
Smoking a pipe. And a lot of the cases right down to Richard Dreyfuss's face being burned by the UFO, those came directly out of Project Blue Book files. Even the description of what the entities looked like. Close encounters. Again, close encounters of the third kind. This is the United States Air Force documenting this stuff.
Yeah.
And he took it directly out of Project Blue Book files and made a movie out of it. And as a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, he has Dr. Hynek have a cameo appearance in the movie.
You know what?
Most people don't know that.
It's a fantastic movie, too.
It's a great movie.
Because it's a movie that's filled with, it's not like standard UFOs land. There's some play going on. There's some weirdness to the way they interact with us that sort of is much more realistic. In terms of like the things that people experience, they experience interactions, very strange interactions. And when they had those little orb-like things that were flying around in the movie, that's all straight out of like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I remember I had a buddy of mine who was a pilot over Europe in the 70s, and he used to come for family dinners, and he was always talking about it, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then later we're all in the life.
Fighters.
When I started getting interested in UFOs, I was like, Michael, tell me about that UFO encounter you had, that red orb. He goes, it was just like it was in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg's movie. And I was like, they took those files directly out of Project Blue Book files and right onto the big screen.
That's what the Foo Fighters were, right?
Yeah, Foo Fighters too. They had little orbs.
Yeah,
little orbs.
Fighter pilots are flying around. They're seeing these things with them.
Well, but let me ask you, and this is why that I don't think it's a psyop thing. Because
I don't think it's a psyop either.
Well, the reason why I don't is because, okay, I don't just believe Grush because he testified under oath and he's a high-level intelligence officer. Well, that's very impressive. I believe Grush because his claims align with my personal research in the field. Remember, I've investigated crash retrieval programs, crash retrieval cases, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I put out Moment of Contact, well, actually, when I went in to put out Moment of Contact, people were going, James, you just dropped one of the biggest, most successful UFO films in terms of transcending the UFO community and penetrating a much broader, more mainstream audience. Are you sure you want to put out a documentary that deals with an alleged crash and live aliens walking around the town of Varginha, Brazil? Like, seriously, that's what you want to put out there? You got access to like Harry Reid and all these intel insiders, and now you want to do that? You're going to tarnish your reputation. It's a bad.
Who gave you that advice?
A lot of people did.
I wish you called me.
Well,
I was like, James, you can handle it.
You probably heard about Moment of Contact, and then you thought, oh, this sounds too crazy. Then eventually you watched it.
No, I thought, I always think a crash and contact sounds crazy.
I know
it
does.
I always think that. But I would have never told you not to do it.
Oh, okay.
I would have never told you not to do it. You're really good at this. You know how to, you're really good at, explaining
But you
UFO
look at half
phenomena.
the town talking about it, including the mayor.
That's an incredible story. It's an incredible story.
It's a phenomenal story.
It's one of those stories where you're like, if everybody's in on this, this is crazy. If everybody's telling it, and there's not one contrarian that comes out and goes, they all told me to lie. I'm not fucking lying. This is stupid. They're doing it for tourism.
Oh,
not
yeah.
one person? Come on. There's always some hater. There's always some hater who wants to ruin your gag.
I remember.
You know what I mean?
I told you. I remember when I was making Moment of Contact and I wasn't done with it yet, Lou Elizondo was like, he's like, James, he called me up. He goes, I need a copy. I was like, the film's not done. I don't care. I need a copy. Give me a rough cut. I don't care. I was like, okay, what's the urgency? And he's like, you don't understand who's watching this right now. So I was like, okay. So I'm giving him copies, and I had absolutely no idea ever in 100 million years that I think we're going to be having, months after the release of Moment of Contact, a congressional hearing under oath that was a crash retrieval program.
What year did
Biologics.
Moment of Contact come out?
It came out at the end of 2022.
Do you think Biden watched it? Do you think he sat down with Biden? That would have been wild.
God, he's been
Biden?
been so dismissive of it all. Like, Obama said a lot more about it.
Why? Because he's already in space. He's in space right now.
He's like, go talk
he's
to Obama.
in orbit right now around
Saturn. Really?
Saturn.
That's the best you can do?
He's like Dr. Manhattan. He's on the moon in a glass house.
Okay, let's say, if Biden, if you're listening right now, you have nothing to lose.
You're the president of the United States, sir. Release the hounds.
He's never running ever again.
Exactly.
He's not running for a second term.
Yeah.
Come on, we're done.
He's already pardoned more human beings than any president ever other than Carter.
To the advice at the end of the program by Senator Harry Reid, who's now the late Senator Harry Reid, and I said to him, what advice would you give the president? It could have been any president at the time. And he said, don't be afraid of tarnishing your legacy by addressing this issue head on. And I hope that Biden gets to see that. And I really hope that President-elect Donald Trump gets to see that. People are ready for the truth. They've had enough of the lying. I think we're way beyond that at this point.
I agree with you. However, when I confronted Mr. Trump, he was very cagey.
Was he really?
Very cagey. I've seen some things. They told me some things. He didn't tell me shit. He basically, it was basically like neither confirm nor deny. No, there was no eyes. I don't do that shit. Especially to a pro like Donald Trump. Like, you're not.
Really?
Yeah. You're going to do it to an actor or something. Shut up. You're not going to know what the fuck they think.
Poker face.
Daniel Day-Lewis told you that he just ate a baby. You'd fucking believe him. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, this idea that, like what did his eyes tell you? What did his eyes tell you? It depends on the person. Depends on the person. If it's your regular crackpot and they tell you a lie, you're like, something's up. But there's people that can hide things. They can hide things behind their eyes. I think he knows something. I don't think he's that interested. I think he's more interested. I think he's a sort of a no-nonsense type of guy. This is why. You kind of have to be managing multiple businesses simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
He's always done that his whole career, right?
Yeah.
Manage being on The Apprentice while running these golf courses, while having these buildings, apartment buildings, hotels. He's constantly doing something, right?
Yes.
So while he's doing all that, and he's playing golf, while he's doing all that, there's no time for fucking aliens, man. There's no time for nonsense. There's no time for sitting around with your buddies, smoking a cigar, going, "What do you think, man? I mean, if I was them, man, I would do what they're doing." I wouldn't even. There's no time for that nonsense talk. That guy's got businesses.
But we got objects of unknown origin flying over residential areas, flying over military bases, flying over nuclear silos.
Well, now I think he's much more interested because
that's a matter of national security. People
is
are freaking out. Like, what the hell are we seeing? And they're going, we don't know what they are, but everything's fine.
Well, he's
totally
addressed
safe. There's no national security issue here. We don't know what they are, but you're fine. Don't worry about it. You remember what was the Steven Spielberg movie with the shark, the great white shark?
Yeah, Jaws.
Jaws. You remember? They're like, everything's fine.
The mayor's like, keep swimming.
Yeah, keep swimming. The water's fine. Everyone would say people are getting bit in half.
That's the perfect analogy. Dude, that is the perfect analogy. Right. That is it.
Everything's fine. Go about your lives.
They're definitely not nuke sniffing drones. Come on, nuke sniffing drones. So what if some nuclear material was just stolen off a cargo ship? Whatever. Guys.
All the online conspiracy stuff is crazy, and I get a lot of it because obviously what I do.
Of course.
And people send me all kinds of stuff. I was like, well, hang on a second. I wish I could put boots on the ground, but no, there's something really weird going on. And the fact that they don't know, or they're claiming that they don't know what it is.
The subject is much more open to discussion, like I was saying, amongst serious people.
Yes.
Where it didn't used to be before. And now I think with this drone thing, I think there's so many people that are going, okay, even if they're ours or they're China's or they're who, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, why are there so many of them? What are the answers? And why can't you tell us? Is it because they're searching for a nuke? Jesus Christ, maybe you should warn people and get the fuck out of here. Is that really what's going on? Like, if it's not, what is going on? And if it's not ours, what are they? And how come you can't track them? How come, what kind of...
Very bizarre.
It doesn't even make sense.
It's very, very bizarre.
It doesn't make sense when you think of the capabilities of the United States military. It doesn't make any sense. They can't figure out what's going on. I think what Trump said is probably correct, that the government knows. They know what's happening, and they don't want to tell people.
Why wouldn't he, though? He could tell us. Why wouldn't he tell us?
I don't think he knows yet. I don't think until he gets into office. He gave a speech about it at Mar-a-Lago.
I saw that. But did he say?
Well, let's watch it. We'll watch it.
Yeah,
pull the speech up.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if he. Yeah, well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, essentially, he was saying that he knows that the government knows what's going on, and they're not telling us.
So
and that means they're not telling him.
So they're not telling him.
No, I don't think until you get into office, you're not the president, right? So he's the president-elect. I don't know what kind of
clearances that he has.
Yeah, I don't understand how that works.
God, I'd be very curious to know what he knows.
Right, especially with this. Like, who do you even ask? Like, who is the person that can lay out the information? Like, which department? Which agency?
Yeah,
Let's
right.
hear
And
him
it seems
talk.
like they're so compartmentalized.
What about the fear here at home of the drones? Good to see you. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows, and our president knows.
Our president knows.
And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, they happen to be over Bedminster.
Will you shoot them down?
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Yeah.
I think I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster.
Yeah.
Wow.
I bet someone told him, Mr. President, it's pretty important that you don't go to the golf course. Yeah.
God, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Hey,
so what does that mean?
I gotta, if you don't mind, I was contacted. I went to this.
Are you going to switch subjects?
Well, no. This is all about exactly what we're talking about. This is something that I really need to put out there because it's very important.
Okay.
And it's an unprecedented effort spearheaded by this woman, Andrea, who runs a number of communities on Reddit. And she said that they're banding together for the first time ever. It's the biggest grassroots campaign for government transparency. This is happening on Friday the 20th of December at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And this has the potential to reach millions and millions of people. It's the most unprecedented event on Reddit in history. And I'll post all of the necessary information on X because this is a very grassroots effort. And
what are they doing?
At James C. Fox on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's the Reddit community is banding together for a huge grassroots campaign for government transparency. So basically all the various platforms on Reddit, like paranormal, UFO, they don't usually get along too well, but they're all combining their resources and they're getting together for the first time ever and to push for government transparency. There's a couple of government insiders that appear in my film that will be appearing on this to answer questions and what steps need to be happening, what's going on today. And this is happening on the 20th of December, 3 p.m., and I'll be posting more information, the very specific details on X at James C. Fox. I just wanted to get that out there before because...
Well, the more of this stuff that happens, the better. The more people demand it, the better. The more politicians hear from the people and want to... I mean, especially politicians that are up for re-election and they want to show that they're doing what the people want them to do. Yeah, I'd like to know more, but obviously I'm very happy that we're hearing much more about this subject in a serious way.
Yeah.
You know, whatever the hell's going on. You imagine you're hanging out with Trump, and he's like, you want to see the UFO? Can you keep a secret? Yeah, there he is, hanging out with Nixon. And they supposedly do have something that crashed, and they supposedly do have biological entities that are on ice somewhere. This is according to these whistleblowers that work for the government, and now we're talking about it. I just don't know what's real. It's hard to know. And you talk about it, you feel like a moron, because it's like...
There's got to be something out there. Okay, we got to assume there's something out there. Whether or not, I don't even know.
Right, but should we assume that something's been here?
Yeah.
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 I think so.
Yeah, they've been here.
Well, I would come here. If I was from somewhere else, and I was like, what, you know, imagine if you're like from some super advanced civilization that's completely abandoned war. There's no thievery. Everybody reads everybody's minds. There's no unfairness because they've worked all that stuff out. And it's just superior intellect because everybody's evolved for 1,000,000 years past where we are now. And you get the opportunity to see what a breakthrough civilization looks like, right when they're figuring out nuclear power, right when they're figuring out flight and war and cell phones and shit like that. Like, that would be like you and I going back and going and visiting the real Wild West, like being in a gold mining town in 1830. You know how nuts that would be? You know how fucking crazy. Be one of the minor 49ers in 1849, going all the way to San Francisco, and these fucking animals stabbing each other in saloons. Like, you know what that would be like?
That's insane.
The kind of barbarians that took a chance with wooden wheels getting pulled by a horse and went across mountain ranges to try to get to the gold. That would be like us going to visit that. Of course we would visit that. Of course. Like, if you had a chance to see what it would like to see Christopher Columbus land in the Bahamas, to see what that must have been like, of course you would want to see it. If you could go literally back in time and see primitive humans, well, if they're just like us, but they're like us millions of years from now, of course they would want to visit us. It would be so interesting. You imagine if there was a planet where we could go where we could see cavemen?
We go.
Would you imagine?
Fucking Musk would get us in an hour.
Yeah.
But it's...
Well, you can see guys making fucking arrowheads with flint for the first time and strapping them to sticks, giant fucking heads and big teeth, covered in hair, just figuring out tools. Oh, my God. We would be fascinated by those people.
The way I think about it is, listen, since I'm a kid, we're talking about Martians and aliens, right? Since I'm fucking 6, 7, I've been hearing about this. The moon landing was in 1969, so I was 6. So it started after that. Like, I heard more and more about it. So what you mean to tell me is in 55 years we haven't found out more information about it? We know. We know what's going on. We know. NASA's not stupid. They know something's out there. They play with us a little bit from time to time. But there's something out there, my friend.
I think so, too.
There's something out there.
I think the other problem with the president knowing... You know, can they keep things from the president? Of course they can. The president is only there for 4 years. And then he has to get in there again. And if he wins, he's only there for 4 more years. These fucking people have 30-year careers, 50-year careers in the intelligence agencies.
They know.
If they know something and they've known something since, fucking Gerald Ford, why would they tell you? Why do you need to know?
And
We've already been hiding this from the population for so long.
And those old timers didn't need what's that when you have to sign something?
NDA?
NDA, like NAD, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, there was no
like,
NDAs back then.
There's no NDAs back then.
Yeah.
So there was something to it.
Yeah.
There was something to it. You got that place in New Mexico. You got Hudson County, what we discussed before, with the Martians landing. You have all these places that have a higher volume. I wonder what's number 2 in UFO sightings.
I wonder what's number 1. What's number 1? Is it Hudson Valley?
Yeah, Hudson Valley by the George Washington Bridge, that whole thing.
That's crazy.
That's number 1.
Them.
I wonder what number 2, number 3, and number 4 is.
It's interesting that a lot of them are over near where the ocean is. Because that's one of the big theories, that they have bases in the ocean. Because the reality of the ocean is no one's looking. If you have something on Earth, satellites can see it. Like if you have something that's in the middle of Nevada in some deserted area and you have buildings, satellites can see that. They can see the structures. So you have to hide them. But if you have something in the ocean, nobody sees anything. We've only explored, what is the percentage of the ocean floor that we have just explored? I think it's like 10%. I think it's somewhere around 10, maybe 20%. So that means that 80% of the ocean floor is undiscovered. We have no idea what's down there. And it's, a mile, 2 miles deep in some spots. If you're from a super sophisticated civilization that's millions of light years away, and you can come here instantaneously, and you have the ability to traverse in these what they call transmedium craft, which means they can go through air, go through water. It creates a gravity bubble around it and go through everything. That's what they think these things are doing. That's what they can go 500 knots underwater, just like nothing we have could do that. And if they have bases under the ocean, it makes sense that these sightings are all near the ocean. It just totally makes sense.
A lot happens in the ocean. That ocean's stronger than what you fucking think.
Yeah.
I love going to a beach and just sitting on the beach and watching the ocean.
2030.
Seabed 2030, what they've mapped out?
They've gotten 30% mapped. They're trying to get the whole thing done by 2030.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, what if they find a base?
Yeah. So
what if they get down there and they find bases? What is all that stuff? What are those lines?
I'm guessing that's where they probably sent their drones. Probably.
Whoa.
Looks like a pool scrubber. It
Whoa,
just goes.
that's crazy.
Holy shit.
So they're scouring the ocean floor to try to get them. That's why the aliens are going to come out. Wow, that's Hawaii. Whoa.
Oh, that's not Hawaii. Hawaii's over here.
It is?
Yeah.
What's that? What are those islands in the middle? Oh, is that Catalina?
And shit, yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, you were zoomed in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to see what this stuff is.
Oh, I see.
I think these little light colored brown spots are what's sticking up, and the rest of it's underneath.